Hey, what's going on, everybody? I got a message from one of my subscribers asking me to speak on the gangs and violence that's going on here in America, and certain cities that are high populated with it, like L.A. or Chicago is getting a lot of press now, which I already know that's simply because of President Obama. But cities like that, in Detroit and Philadelphia and Baltimore, those type of cities, and any other cities that has this infestation of gangs and violence at a high rate. And they basically wanted my solution and how I would go about putting an end to a lot of this out here. And we already know that Chicago's getting a lot of press right now. A lot of people are talking about gun control and shit, which is bullshit, because Chicago has one of the strictest laws against gun ownership. So I don't really think that's necessary. The reason why a lot of this is going on is a lot of stuff that's behind the scenes, along with people just pinpointing Chicago out because of President Obama. But this goes on all the time. Right now, LA and South Central, there's a whole gang turf going on between the blacks and the Mexicans, and it surprised me this year because usually the gang activity heats up in LA during the summer. But during the summer we have violence, but it wasn't to the extreme like previous years. But they wait around until September and now to start this gang bullshit up again. So I mean, you just never know when you're out here in LA. But I'm gonna give my solution. And number one, I think we possibly have to bring in the National Guard. And I know a lot of people in these communities say, well, we shouldn't do this, or it's embarrassing, or why do we have to go to those measures to police our community? And I understand that to a certain extent, because I'm somebody who comes out of these areas. I've lived in Compton, I've lived in Southside Queens, I've lived in Brooklyn, I've lived in Inglewood, I've lived in Long Beach, South Central, so on and so on. So I've been in these communities, and I do understand that point, because it seems like when a black community or a Hispanic community is somewhat high populated with crime and violence, people want to say, hey, look, they're the bad ones. They're so bad, we need to bring the National Guard over there, or we need to go over there and tame these monkeys from jumping around and killing each other. It's always extra pressure that's put down on our community. But yeah, we have white kids that come out of these little middle class areas or these little high sedity schools, and they go around, they shoot up the whole school, and we don't get that type of pressure that's put on them. So I do understand where they're coming from, like I've said in the previous my videos. But at the same time, we have to think about some things. Violence is at an all-time high. People are killing each other. You got these characters out here with guns, and I'm not talking about a little 22. I'm talking about guns that people use in the military and to blow up shit. I've seen it. We have these cats out here 16, 17, 18 years old. Well, I'm talking about high-powered weapons, and they're going around shooting anybody. Don't care who they shoot, whether it's a kid, whether it's somebody's mother, whether it's your family member. They just killing everybody. And we really have to think about the sacrifice we might have to make to depreciate a lot of this violence. And me personally, although I do understand the concern with people within the community with the National Guard and everything, and I heard a lot of people saying that it gives them more of a reason to gun certain people of certain skin colors down. So I do understand that point. But at the same time, just like I said in my other video that I did a couple of weeks ago, if your mother, if your little brother or sister or a close family member of yours was gunned down by this senseless violence, I think a lot of you will have a different mindset towards this. And personally, I think the National Guard could do some help. I think that we need to be very mindful about how much help will they do, because a lot of times, like I've said, they might come in there for a short period of time, and then after they're gone, or the violence settles down, it hypes back up again, because people are going to be on their best behavior when they know people are watching them. So I do think that's something that we need to think about, something that we need to take into consideration, and also we need to think about the outlook on that, and really make a change. Another thing we need to do is we need to start getting our economic system right within these communities. A lot of times these young cats run around here because they're struggling. You know, they don't have a job, or there's lack of opportunities. And you know, if you come home as a young man, you're already black, you know, you see your mother struggling, trying to pay the bills, you don't have shit. You know, a lot of times these guys are easily influenced by the quick and fast money. So I think what we need to do in these communities is we need to start building certain programs, certain job source programs where these cats can go and learn them a trade free of charge. You know, get their high school diploma. You know, just better ourselves economically in these certain areas, because that's pretty much the main source of that. It's an economic problem. That's why a lot of these guys are selling drugs, or you know, they're killing each other simply off a drug turf, which results into economic profit. So that's really the main source of a lot of this. It's not that, you know, black people and Hispanics just decide to kill each other. If you put anybody in a certain environment, in a certain type of condition, under certain type of pressures, they will resort to negative things. So, you know, that's something we have to deal with. A lot of these companies, excuse me, not companies too, but establishments that are in our communities, like these little Oriental places that open up these liquor stores and grocery stores and beauty supplies and so on and so on. And these Targets and Walmarts, we need to demand that they employ our people. You know, you got women that spend thousands of dollars in these little Oriental beauty supply places. How many times have you went in and saw someone who looks like you? Don't worry, I'll wait. You don't see that. How many times have you went into a grocery store, or you know, a Foot Action or something, and you saw a mass majority of people who look like you, a black person? You might see a couple of Hispanics, you know, in the grocery store here and there, and that's because they're hiring their own people, but you don't see people that look like you. And that's what we need to do. We need to start demanding that the same people that we're making filthy rich day in and day out, we need to start demanding that they employ our people. And in return, that will get a lot of these guys off of the streets. Another thing, we need to focus on our education. When our education is right, our future is right. And you have a lot of teachers that go to these schools every day, don't give a damn about the kids, don't care about, you know, whether you graduate or not. You know, they're there to basically warm a seat and collect a paycheck and basically babysit you through the duration of your time in school. They don't care about the community, don't care about the kids there. And we need to start bettering our education system. We need to have more updated books, not books that, you know, are from the 90s. We need to create certain programs that will benefit our children mentally. I'm not talking about a basketball court or some bullshit like that, because they seem to think that all black people in the hood, all they want to do is play basketball and football. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can teach these kids, but at the same time let them have a good time. You know, I remember back when I was in high school, we had a poetry class. A lot of our brothers and sisters are very into poetry. You know, hip hop, when it started, was poetry. We can create classes like that. You can say, okay, well, you know, we're going to create an hour and a half to 2 hour program after school for these kids, where they can come and they can learn about producing music. They can learn about you know, marketing and promotion. They can learn about you know, just the craft of poetry or writing skills. But at the same time, in return that, you must do, if it's a 2 hour class, you must do an hour of computer studies, or you must do an hour of learning your mathematics or science or history. And in the second half, we can do something that, you know, as a hobby, something like, you know, hip hop or a dance class or whatever, something that would draw kids in, but at the same time we're educating them at the same time. And I think that, you know, people have unrealistic tactics out here. They think, you know, if we go along with the same system that's been going on, things will be okay. And we can look around and see that a lot of this is not solving the thing. Another thing we need to do is we need to have brothers and sisters in the community step up. You know, it's no secret that in the African American community, we have a lot of single parents out here. And at the same time, you know, that's a whole nother video, but at the same time, we have a lot of brothers that can be very impactful and give a lot of our young brothers and sisters that wisdom and that integrity and that respect and self-confidence that they need, that, you know, maybe their father in their life or their biological father is not given to them. Same with, you know, the women in the community. We have intelligent black people within our community, but it's just the fact that whether they're going to step up or whether we allow them to step up, because you have a lot of black single mothers out here that don't want, you know, you to tell them anything about their children. You know, they don't want you to come up and discipline your child. I'm not saying, you know, beat the hell out of them, nothing like that, but, you know, it takes a community to raise one child. And I think that we need people in the community to step up. You know, it's time for us to stop complaining in the barbershop and in the beauty supply and talk about, oh, these little young kids out here, you know, they terrible, they shooting up stuff. Well, if you know you a positive influence, why don't you take one of those young brothers and sisters to the side and say, hey, let me talk to you. Let me spend a little time with you. Let me give you some wisdom. Let me give you some advice. Why are we not doing that? Why are we just sitting up complaining on YouTube and in the barbershop and in, you know, our the comfortability of our own home? Why aren't we out there creating change in the community? And we saw, you know, Detroit 300 try to come out and do things which they were taken down. So, you know, I think that's something we need to come together as a community, and we need to start bettering our community for the better of our future. And you know, another thing is that I think that they need to crack down on some of the gang activity that's going on within the prison system, because, you know, just like I said, I've come out of these communities. You know, I was raised in a single parent house, so I know how to gang. I've been around this whole LA gang shit my whole life. You know, even when I went to New York, I was staying out there, I was around it. This is an America type of thing. You know, it's not just a one area problem. And a lot of these shots are being called from the jail system. You have a lot of impressionable cats that don't have any father figure in the home, don't have any male leadership or female leadership, and they join these gangs for love and support, for some type of guidance. So you got these cats sitting around waiting for the big homie in the jail to send the word out. Yo, go kill him. Go move on this turf over here. Go do this. Go do that. And what happens is that you have these guys in jail that are really calling the shots, which is feeding out into the streets. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, or, you know, these people out here that are in politics, they don't understand the streets. And when you don't understand the streets, you can't really go after the problem in an intricate way. You know, in order to beat your opponent, you have to study your opponent, and that's something that, you know, people don't understand out here. They need to really crack down on the activity and the shot calling that's going on in the prison system, because it's leaking out onto the streets. If there's a riot between blacks and Mexicans, or whites and blacks, or whatever, in the prison system, it's going to leak out onto the streets. So, you know, these are just things that we need to get into tact in order to stop a lot of this violence and, you know, innocent people just being gunned down. You know, and I truly think that if we attack these methods, gangs and violence will go down tremendously. You know, it's not just going to be one thing that's going to stop it. It's a collection of things. And it's just time for us, as everybody, as, you know, our president, you know, even though he's you know, not a descendant of slaves, he's a black man. It's time for him to step up. It's time for the police departments to step up. It's time for us in our community to step up. And it's time for the educational system to step up. Everybody needs to do their part. And like I said, a lot of this boils down to economical. You know, people don't want to come home and they're starving. You know, and they don't have anything, or they have to worry about whether they're going to have a place to stay next week. You know, these are things that people are very concerned about. These guys a lot of times don't wake up and say, I want to go sell drugs today. It's because of the condition they're in. And I'm not condoning them. I think it's ignorant. I think it's a form of self-hatred. But at the same time, you have to understand the situation that these people are in. And I'm coming from somebody that comes out of these environments. I'm not somebody who grew up in a middle class, you know, area, or you know, always had a two-parent household, or I had sometime hard time. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to struggle. And there is a difference between being poor and struggling. I come from this, so I know how to go about taking it down and demising a lot of this stuff that we have going on out here. But that's all I had to say. Let's stop talking and let's start doing.